Welcome back to another episode of the Engage podcast. I'm Laura Woods.
And back again, Ryan Argenta. Today we're here with the R&I guys, just like old times, Scott Bowles and John Doherty. Welcome back.
Good to be here. Thank you.
All right, and today we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into disability. So first off, who qualifies for disability?
Great question. Any Delta pilot that is unable to exercise the privileges of their first-class medical qualifies for both sick leave and, if needed, disability.
All right, I'm assuming you have to use all of your sick time.
Also a great question. Yes, all of your sick leave has to be exhausted before you qualify for disability.
And what does disability look like for us? We have short-term, long-term. If it goes over a year, can you just walk me through what that timeline looks like, what a pilot would be looking at?
Sure. Shameless plug. I'd say we have the best disability policy in the business. From a pilot's perspective, the short-term and long-term disability are really indistinguishable from each other than when you go from short-term to long-term, you go from 2 paychecks a month to 1 paycheck a month on disability. And you also drop from an S3 pass category to an S3B, like a retiree pass category. But other than that, there's really no difference between the short and the long term. So you will receive 50% of the highest 12 consecutive months out of your last 36 months on disability. If you are a member of DPMA, which the vast majority of Delta pilots are, you will receive the same calculation, the best 12 out of your last 36, and you'll receive 25% of that number. However, that number is tax-free, whereas the 50% is taxable. So what most pilots report is somewhere in the 90 to 95% of their pre-disability income is what they will receive during their first year while they're while they're receiving the DPMA benefit.
Yeah, so I can imagine there's some anxiety about going on disability, or if this is maybe a known event or a known surgery that you have to do, and kind of going through the process. So if I'm preparing for something or something has happened to me, the first thing I do is call in sick, just regular through Micro. Now you can click it to sick it. So you sick out.
Correct.
You exhaust your current sick leave. And while you're on sick leave, now is probably the time to start calling R&I, retirement insurance, and saying, look, this is going to be a long-term thing. Perhaps it's a longer issue or a pre-planned surgery or procedure. And I've heard from those who have been on disability, to your credit, that the process is very streamlined and the checklists are there and you guys know your stuff so well that the process is pretty simple. So maybe one thing you can unload from yourself as you're going into this scary time, right? And you're trying to manage your health and your family and your paycheck, is knowing that these guys in R&I really do have your back and they've got the process down. Yeah, they're high-fiving and well-deserved. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is a fairly streamlined process. Just to give folks an idea of the magnitude of the disability program here at Delta. At any given time, we run about 5% of the pilot group that's out on disability. So that runs close to 800 people. So there's a well-traveled road. However, when an individual pilot gets there, it's their first time doing it, hopefully their only time doing it. So there's a lot of unknowns and, as you said, uncertainties and concerns about, where's the next paycheck going to come from and all of that. So typically we'll advise about 2 to 3 weeks before you run out of sick leave, you start filling out the paperwork. That paperwork is actually held and controlled by Delta. So it sits on the Flight Ops website. If you go to the Flight Ops page, the admin tab, and drop down to pilot leaves, you'll find the disability guide and disability handbook, and contained in there is the actual application for disability. The company application, or the Harvey Watt application, is a little bit of a project. It's, I think, 13 or so pages. It's going to require some interaction with the medical community, signatures, and that type of thing. So you want to give yourself a little bit of time to get through that. If you're a member of DPMA, which, like we said, is the vast majority of us, that's a very simple one-page process, but you will require some medical verification on both those counts. One thing to be aware of is if for whatever reason you're unable to have your doctor's signature or complete the form on time, both Harvey Watt and DPMA will backdate your disability payments to the day you ran out of sick leave. So if you're a week or two late, no need to stress other than that short gap in pay.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a highlight to mention. So if you're stressed out about getting everything together and doctor's appointments and availability, and again, you're managing your health, your family, don't stress too much because it'll be backdated to when your sick leave ended. And that's annotated on your schedule or your time card as
SLOA.
SLOA marks. And so
Sick leave of
DPMA
absence, right?
Sick leave of absence. That'll
Okay.
be on your schedule.
Okay. And so Harvey Watt, your disability payment, your 50% taxable, and your DPMA, the other 25%, is backdated to that.
Correct. The DPMA will give you the option. Let's say you're newer in your career and you may or may not want to use all of your DPMA. If you decided, well, I'm only going to be out for a few weeks or a month, maybe I won't claim my DPMA. And then all of a sudden, say something changes and now instead of a month, it's going to be a year. You may revisit that decision. You'll have the option of backdating your DPMA to the date of your sick leave of absence or not. That's up to you.
I didn't realize so you can choose to use your DPMA benefit or not.
Correct. And we will often have some, I hesitate to say younger, but less tenured pilots that will choose to not use their DPMA at the newer, lower pay rates that they're in their early years and maybe roll the dice and save that for later.
Yeah, I remember during both of my pregnancies here, I had the option, but we were very junior, meaning I was probably here for 2 years, I want to say. And my husband was a new hire at United. So we chose to use it, knowing that in the future, we kind of rolled the dice in the other way and said, we'll take the money now instead of maybe needing it later because our margins weren't quite there.
Sure. And that's a great option to have. And that's something each pilot can make the decision on based on their family situation. So it's good to know that you could save it if you want. You don't have to, and it's available if you need it.
And I know DPMA is its own third-party organization and not truly related to Delta or the Delta MEC or R&I, but there are some limits of how often you can use that. And there's a lifetime limit, right? Can you go through those?
Sure.
Yeah, it's 730 days. They measure their benefit in days. So there's a misconception that you can only use it twice. You can only use it twice if each one of your incidences was 365 days. But theoretically, you could use 730 single days of disability. I don't know how you'd ever do that. But yeah, they measure their benefit days. So if you're only out 30 days, that's the benefit that they subtract out of your account.
So that's the lifetime amount, and you can use it as many times as you need.
But
up to that.
Yeah, the lifetime amount, and then one event can't be more than 365 or a year.
Yeah.
A lot of pilots are, again, concerned about finances and getting their things in order while they're trying to maintain their health. So you mentioned the high mark within the previous 36 months is what your disability pay is going to be.
Correct.
Does that include profit sharing?
It does. It does include profit sharing. So your highest 12 months, consecutive 12 months out of your last 36 months. So that's the measure. And when you go on disability, you will get a document from Delta with essentially a calendar of your last 36 months, and they'll highlight that highest 12 months. So you can be aware of the accuracy of that and everything else. We really don't see any issues. Rarely do we have a problem with
The calculation. The calculations are usually always right.
Okay. That's good to know. That's one less thing you have to worry about.
Yeah.
What about the 401k, or 17%? What happens to that?
So essentially, when you go from your traditional salary to 50%, your 401k contribution, currently at 17%, is double. So it's 34% while you're out on your 50% pay. So effectively, it's as if you're still fully paid from a retirement contribution perspective. So that works out really well for most people if you were reaching IRS limit prior to disability, you would likely also be able to reach IRS limits while you're on disability. So
that's a really good reassurance that you're not, just because you're out sick for, we'll say, a year, that your 401k isn't taking that hit while you're out. You're still accruing that 401k.
So for the average tour on disability, most people will not see a decrease in their retirement projections down the road, which is a really nice situation to be in.
I think that's unique to Delta pilots in general, right?
That was something negotiated back in the somewhat dark days of bankruptcy and has existed to this date. So, obviously, if you're out for a long period of time, multiple years, you're going to miss out on seat changes, aircraft upgrades, longevity increases, et cetera. But from a, relatively short time on disability, that doubling of your DC money is a big impact.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And don't get caught up maybe in the percentages or the doubling or the quarter or DPMA, right? At the end of the day, the 17%, your retirement is based on essentially a full salary. We say you're going down to 50% disability payment. So they technically double your retirement based on that. And then, you do miss out on a little bit when you're out on disability. So you don't accrue vacation, I assume, since you're not actively working, and
Correct.
then you
lose profit sharing.
lose profit sharing. Your disability money doesn't count towards that since you're
Right.
not producing.
You maintain the profit sharing and the vacation accrual until you exhaust your sick leave. At that point, when you transition your disability or you reach that SLOA date, that's when those two things stop.
Okay.
Those are the real two disadvantages, at least if you have a disability less than 1 year. Otherwise, you're pretty much made whole.
Okay. And if let's say I go out on disability, but I have vacation and my disability essentially overlaps my vacation, do I get to rebid that? Or am I just simply
It
paid
depends
for
on
it?
when you come back from said disability. So if you come back earlier in the vacation year, prior to February 1st, vacation year runs from April 1st to March 31st. So if you come back prior to February 1st, you'd have an ability to rebid that vacation in that February-March timeframe if some open vacation was available, generally speaking. And then if you come back after that, it will simply pay out to you in April. So on April 15th paycheck, you would get whatever vacation you were unable to take. And generally, we see most people, even if they do come back before, they just end up being paid out for their vacation in April.
I don't know if it's worth repeating, but we have a lot of new hires and recent hires who are coming on board. And so disability, obviously you never really want to go out on disability, but it'd be even more stressful as, say, a more junior pilot or somebody who's newish on property. And so, Laura, I think your example bears weight, right? So you were newish. And
Yeah, I've been here a couple years.
And so you go out on FMLA or disability for your pregnancy?
Yeah. So technically, pregnancies do count for disability. So I used all my sick time and then I moved into the disability realm and I opted for DPMA. So I was out for quite a while with my first one. I went out pretty early. So I was home pregnant and collecting nearly a full paycheck and eased my mind because I didn't have to worry about that while I'm still also buying a bunch of things because you're adding a human being to your household.
Right.
And one thing to comment on that is also while you were out on disability, the entire time you're out, you're still eligible for active duty healthcare rates and coverage. So your healthcare will not change. You can still participate in open enrollment in the fall and those types of things, health savings accounts and whatnot. So something to be aware of. You do not lose your insurance while on disability. You're still an active employee.
Which is logical because if you're out on disability, you're going to want health insurance.
Correct.
And not COBRA.
Yeah.
And one thing we see with the new hires too, not everybody has 240 or 270 hours. So when you're relatively new, you don't have very much sick time. So there's like, if you break your ankle, like I did a couple years ago, I almost ended up on disability, but I had 240 hours of sick leave and was able to come back before I exhausted all my sick leave. If I was a new hire and had only 40 hours, I would have been on disability. So the timeline accelerates when you're newer.
And what happens if you have no sick time? Say I'm a new hire, I've had a couple colds, flus, whatever it is, and I have 0 hours.
You would qualify for disability. The one caveat to that, and we run into that with new hires some, is that there is a 7-day waiting period. So you would essentially have, if you had no sick time, you'd have a 7-day unpaid leave, and then your disability would start.
And what would they earn on disability?
Yeah, that was changed in the last contract. There is a minimum floor. It's the first year FO pay times 1,000 hours in half. So it's about $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year would be the current
That's
amount.
good to know. So if you're a true new hire, you're maybe even on training pay, there is a floor.
There is a floor that was established in the last contract. I mean, that could be a soapbox conversation, but one person really championed that, and that was their issue. They had a diagnosis while they were actually in training, and that was one of the issues he pushed forward and got the contract changed.
So how long can a person stay on disability? Is this like a 10-year, 15-year? How long can you stay on disability?
Good question. So you are covered on disability until you either return to active service or you reach the federally mandated retirement age. That said, there is one caveat to that, and that is if you are out on disability for more than 15 years while you're still eligible for disability pay, you're no longer eligible to return to the seniority list.
Yeah, you leave the seniority list after 15 years.
Okay, let's touch on that a little bit because that may add to some anxiety, right? Of, okay, I'm out on disability. So we're talking two different things. One is your disability payment from Harvey Watt or the provider continues until the federally mandated retirement age, currently 65. So if you're 40 and you go out and you have a major disability and you know you're not going to return, those payments will continue until you're 65 unless they change the age.
Correct.
Delta says after 15 years, even if you're well, you can't come back. So we're giving you 15 years to fix yourself.
Correct.
Okay.
And after 15 years, you no longer have to verify that you're disabled too. So you lose your seniority rights, but you also, if all of a sudden in 16 years you got better, you still receive disability pay.
Okay.
Yeah. But something to keep in mind is it may take away your ability to hold a medical, but you might be able to go and do another job, right? So you could probably sell insurance or cell phones, whatever it is. And so how does that work? If I'm getting half my pay from Delta and I have another job, like, do they take away from my disability?
So essentially, if you are on disability, you're allowed to earn up to your disability pay for the first 36 months with no offsets. So if you were to earn more than your disability pay, let's take an example of $100,000. If you were to earn $100,000 while you're on a disability, that additional $100,000 will be yours to keep. If you were to earn $110,000 and your disability pay was $100,000, that additional $10,000 would be offset for the first 36 months, essentially saying you can't go out and earn more than you would have been earning if you were flying. However, after 36 months, that offset limitation is removed and you're free to do whatever it is you can do at that point.
So extreme example, but to prove the point. So if you're getting $100,000 a year from disability pay, you can go out and get another job that pays exactly $100,000. So your gross is $200,000 and it doesn't offset. But if you make $110,000 from your new job selling cell phones, then your disability will be reduced by that $10,000 difference.
Correct. So your total income would still be $200,000.
But the 36 months, so after 36 months on disability, you can go make $1 million and you'll still get the $100,000 disability. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, you can make the $1 million in year 2. You just wouldn't receive disability pay from Delta in year 2. In year 4, you would. So now you would be making
so it'll
$1
kick
million
back in.
Yes, it will kick back in after the 36
So if you're really
months.
killing it and you're making $1 million for the first 3 years or the second and third year, you wouldn't get any disability payment.
Yep.
But year 4, now it kicks back in. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Not something we see very often, but there's always
Good
a
to know.
chance.
And I'm sure there's carve outs and things like rental property income. And, if you're a savvy investor, that doesn't count. These are all like reportable W-2 kind of.
Yeah, it's usually W-2 income or self-employment income.
Okay.
Almost everything else is excluded, but those are in the disability handbook if you really want to get in the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, which is a great segue. Your disability handbook, you can actually find on the company iPad. There's a retirement insurance folder. You can go to your website, dal.alpa.org, and look for R&I. That guide is really well done. And again, the people who have gone on disability and returned have said that's a useful tool aside from calling in, 1-800-USA-ALPA goes to the Delta MEC, you ask for retirement insurance, and you're off to the races there.
I have a little bit of a random question for you guys. What do most pilots go out on disability for?
Well, I would say from a cause perspective, it's ladders. So stay off the ladders. It's unbelievable how many people we have injured and on disability because of ladder issues. But to your question, it's usually an orthopedic type issue, probably caused by a ladder, but also caused by things just wearing out. So whether it's, knees, hips, shoulders, elbows, wrists, whatever, there's probably a song in there somewhere.
So foot stomp on the ladder, right? You make too much money, just pay somebody to clean out your gutters.
It happened way too many times.
So if it's all right with you, let's transition to something more fun, and that's returning from disability. Now you're well, you want to come back, you've got your medical back, or you're approaching that phase. Now what?
Sort of an evolving discussion at this point, because we've had a change in the Director of Health Services at Delta. So that is now Dr. Van. And so once you present yourself or the company with a first-class medical, you are considered back on the list and can expect to be scheduled for training fairly soon. We won't steal any of the training committee's thunder as far as what training footprint you might be looking at based on how long you were out and seniority implications. Maybe your aircraft went away while you were out or something like that. So we'll leave that to them. But once you present that medical, you are considered back on active status.
That is one of the common things we see. Sometimes the timing, you might actually get your disability pay and you're back on active pay. Rest assured, Delta will find that's not found money. So,
Don't blow it.
Yeah, be prepared to pay that back.
So there's a lag, is what you're saying.
There could be.
A lag.
It just depends on the paycheck timing. Okay. That's probably one of the more common things we see when people come back.
If I know that I'm coming back from disability soon and I'm going through that process and there's a boatload of resources, whether it's AMAS or DPAC or some other organizations through ALPA or otherwise. So if I know I'm coming back, is it worthwhile maybe to call R&I and say, hey, I'm coming back, I expect in say a month, and is there a process I need to get going, or is it pretty seamless and pretty quick?
It's pretty seamless. We actually tend to not hear very much from people coming back unless it's, as JD said, an overpayment issue because of the paycheck timing or something like that. I think more often when people have questions, it'll be more of a contract administration or training committee question where they'll want to know, I was out for 4 months or I was out for 10 months. What training footprint can I expect to come back to? What aircraft can I come back to? Or even what seat can I come back to? As that has different implications based on how long you're out.
There is a return to work checklist on DeltaNet. That same pilot leave site has the return to work checklist.
Okay.
I imagine that people coming back from maybe a hip replacement, knee replacement, shoulder surgery, anything like that would need to take a good hard look, because maybe your doctor says you're good to return to work, but they don't keep in consideration that you're dragging a bag through an airport, putting it maybe in an overhead bin if you're a commuter, and you could have to jump down a slide.
Correct. Or use an escape rope and rappel down the side of an aircraft that's not close to the ground. So there's a lot of things that are not normal for, say, your average orthopedic doctor, that they may think you're good to go to sit behind a desk again, and that may not be you. So one of the things we do see is, especially from the orthopedic injuries, people tend to come back sooner than they might be ready. And then that kind of confuses the process, because you get back and you're partway through training and you realize you might have stepped into this a little sooner than you should have. And now you end up going back out of disability. So something to be aware of. Make sure you're good and ready for all facets of the job, not just passing whatever sim check you may have to get back on the line.
Yeah, great point. Anything else for disability? I think this was great chat. It applies really across the board. I think often, I at least think disability is something I never hope I have to deal with or want to deal with, but there's a lot of backstops, a lot of support in that arena, and it spans all ages, all seniority levels, all seats.
We are available to chat. You're welcome to give the R&I team a call if you want to chat about disability, experiences and all that. You can ask for the pilot volunteers and retirement insurance, as you said, Ryan, 1-800-USA-ALPA, and ask for us, and we're happy to have that conversation. We're usually a couple of us in office every week.
Thank you for coming in and taking the time to sit down and chat with us.
Happy to be here.
You're listening to Engage, the podcast for Delta pilots. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform, and receive notifications when a new episode is available.